My name is Princess Laila. I am 20 years old, and on the morning of October the 17th, 2024, I made a decision that should have destroyed 40 innocent lives. I ordered the execution of 40 Filipino and Kenyan Christian workers for reading the Bible inside our palace in Kabul. But Jesus had other plans that would interrupt my command, confront my pride, and change my destiny forever. This is the testimony of how an Afghan royal princess, born in 2004 into one of the last remaining branches of the old royal family, raised to silence Christianity at any cost, came face to face with the one I thought I despised. From the day I opened my eyes in this world, my life was shaped by strict Islamic discipline, royal expectations, and the belief that our family carried the duty to protect the purity of Islam in Afghanistan. I grew up surrounded by imams who lectured us on righteousness, modesty, and obedience. They reminded me constantly that Christians were misguided people who twisted the truth, and that allowing any trace of their influence in our land was a threat to our faith and culture. I believed every word without question because questioning anything in our palace was unthinkable. I carried that conviction like a shield, proud that my duty as a princess was to defend Islam at all costs, even if it required harsh decisions. As a child, I was taught to memorize Quran verses before I was taught how to play. My private tutors were imams handpicked by my uncle, each one reinforcing the belief that Christians were spreading corruption through their Bibles and foreign teachings. I still remember one imam telling me that allowing a single Bible into Afghanistan was like opening the door for a snake to enter your home. I carried that imagery with me through every year of my life. By the time I turned 15, I associated Christianity with danger and deception. My uncle often said that our duty as Muslims was to guard the faith against all outside influences, and I admired him deeply. I grew up wanting to prove that I too could protect Islam with unwavering loyalty. That desire shaped my personality, strict, prideful, and deeply intolerant of anything that resembled Christianity, especially among migrant workers who came into the country from abroad. Because of this upbringing, I developed a strong sense of suspicion toward foreign workers, especially Filipinos and Kenyans. Many of them were assigned to our palace compound near Dar el Aman as cleaners, cooks, drivers, and helpers. They worked quietly and respectfully, yet I often found myself watching them with narrowed eyes, convinced that behind their politeness was a hidden attempt to spread Christian beliefs. In my mind, they were a threat that needed to be controlled. Whenever I passed through the palace corridors and saw groups of Filipino or Kenyan workers talking softly, I assumed they were planning something religious, even if they were just sharing food or resting. I felt uneasy. The imams had planted in me the belief that Christians were always trying to convert Muslims secretly, and I carried that fear into every interaction. I became strict, demanding, and constantly alert, determined to ensure that Christianity never found a place in our palace. My harshness grew stronger as I got older and took on more responsibilities inside the compound. While other girls my age worried about clothes or marriage, I focused on discipline and security. Some of the staff feared me, but I saw their fear as respect. My uncle once praised me for being strong, saying that Afghanistan needed women who would defend Islam boldly even after everything the country had been through. His words became fuel for my pride. I believed that Allah was pleased with me whenever I punished workers for small mistakes. I became convinced that my purpose in life was to make sure no Christian influence entered our palace or spread among the people we still had influence over in Kabul. So when rumors began reaching me that some foreign workers were gathering secretly at night, I felt not just curious but personally threatened. I sensed that the very thing I feared most was finally happening right under my nose. The rumors grew over several weeks. One evening, a trusted guard came to me during a routine walkthrough and whispered that he had heard soft singing coming from the workers' quarters behind the old palace kitchen. At first, I thought they were just singing normal songs, but he added quietly, "Your Highness, it sounded like church songs in English." My heart tightened with anger. I ordered him to watch more closely and report everything. The next day, he came back shaking, saying he had seen a Kenyan woman holding a small book while others sat around her with heads bowed. His words hit me like fire. In my mind, there was no innocent explanation. This was a Christian gathering happening inside a royal Afghan compound. The thought that such a thing could take place in Kabul, in our own home, felt like a direct insult to me and my family. I felt as if someone had slapped me in the face. I could not let it pass. I began to investigate myself. I questioned supervisors, checked security cameras, and walked through the workers' area without warning. The workers always stood and greeted me respectfully, but I saw fear in their eyes and took it as proof of guilt. Every time I passed their rooms, I looked for signs of Christianity, crosses, papers, anything. But everything looked normal. Their rooms were clean and simple. Still, I could not calm down. I believed Christians were clever and hid their things well. In my anger, I ordered the guards to search the trash, the laundry baskets, even the broken furniture they threw away. I was sure evidence would appear. Days went by with nothing found, and my anger only grew hotter. One afternoon, everything changed. A Filipina cleaner brought me something she found while sweeping under a bedded torn page with English writing and the words John 3 verse 16 at the top. The moment I saw it, my blood boiled. My hands shook with rage. It felt like a knife in my heart that Christian material had entered our palace. At that moment, I did not see the workers as poor people far from home. I saw them as enemies of Islam who had dared to bring corruption into my family's house. I felt humiliated. I stormed through the corridors calling for the chief guard and ordered him to gather every Filipino and Kenyan worker immediately. When all 40 stood in the courtyard, heads lowered and trembling, I walked toward them holding the torn Bible page high. I demanded to know who brought it inside. No one spoke. Their silence made me even angrier. I shouted again and again, but they stayed quiet. I saw their silence as rebellion against Islam and against me. Some started crying softly, but their tears only made me harder. I reminded them that bringing Bibles into Afghanistan and practicing Christianity was against the law and an insult to every Muslim. My voice rose until I could not control it anymore. Anger swallowed every drop of mercy inside me. I told myself that if I did not act strongly, Christianity would spread like poison. I felt the heavy weight of protecting Islam on my shoulders. So without another thought, I gave the order that still haunts me today. I commanded the guards to arrest all 40 workers right there in the courtyard. Some gasped, some cried louder, but I ignored every sound. I told the guards to chain their hands and take them to the detention rooms outside the main compound. I wanted time to decide their punishment, but deep inside, I already knew I was thinking of the worst possible one. The imams had always taught that those who spread Christianity in Muslim lands deserve the strictest punishment. And that night, I believed I was doing exactly what Allah wanted. That evening, I returned to my private room with a heart full of fire and pride. I truly believed I had done something great for Islam. I imagined the imams nodding with approval when they heard how I had caught Christians red-handed inside the palace. I picture my uncle calling me strong and faithful. I told myself over and over that Allah was pleased with me for standing against the enemies of our faith. Yet, somewhere deep inside my chest, a tiny feeling I could not name tried to rise. I pushed it down quickly. I refused to feel anything except victory. I sat at my desk and wrote notes about what should happen next. I wanted the punishment to be severe, something that would make every foreign worker in Kabul afraid to even think about Jesus. I believed a strong message had to be sent, one that no one would ever forget. The next morning, before the call to prayer echoed across Kabul, I summoned the chief guard to my office. He entered with slow steps, his face pale, his eyes unable to meet mine. I spoke with a voice hard as stone. I told him to prepare all 40 Filipino and Kenyan workers for execution before the sun rose the next day. The execution must be quiet, far from the city, in the empty land near Pagman where no one would see or hear. When I finished speaking, the room went completely silent. The guard stood frozen. Then he whispered, "Your Highness, all 40. His voice shook like a leaf in the wind. I looked straight at him and nodded once. I saw fear in his eyes, fear of me and fear of what he had to do. But I told myself a princess must never show weakness. I repeated the order and sent him away. As he left, a strange satisfaction filled me. I felt I had proven my loyalty to Islam, to my family, to Allah. I walked through the palace corridors with my head high. The servants bowed lower than usual. Some guards avoided my eyes. News was already spreading that Princess Laila had ordered something terrible. I took their silence as respect. I spent the rest of the day handling normal palace matters, but inside my mind, I kept seeing the torn Bible page and the faces of the workers. I told myself again and again that I was right. My uncle had always taught that protecting Islam sometimes requires hard actions. I used his words like armor around my heart. Still, whenever I passed a window and saw the mountains around Kabul, that tiny feeling tried to return. I ignored it and kept moving. In the afternoon, I decided to visit the workers' quarters one last time. I told myself I needed to search again, to be completely sure. But deep inside, I think I wanted to feel justified one more time before tomorrow. When I entered their area, the rooms felt strangely peaceful. The beds were made neatly, the floors clean. The air smelled of soap and tea. I hated that peace. I wanted everything to feel guilty and dark. I opened drawers, looked under mattresses, kicked at bags. I found small things that made my anger rise again. A string bracelet with colored beads, a notebook with handwriting in English, a pillow still wet with tears. Each discovery felt like proof that they had been praying and crying to their false god inside my palace. I left the quarters burning with fresh rage. Just as I stepped into the corridor, I heard a soft sound behind a storage door. Like gentle humming, my body froze. I signaled 2 guards. They opened the door fast and sighed. 12 workers were kneeling on prayer mats, eyes closed, hands raised. Whispering together, one Filipino woman held a tiny worn Bible against her heart. When they saw us, terror filled their faces. They jumped up, backs against the wall, trembling, but the woman with the Bible held it even tighter. That sight exploded something inside me. I felt insulted to my very soul that a Bible was inside the royal compound in Kabul. My voice came out louder than I expected. I shouted, asking how they dared bring that book here. None of them answered. Some cried silently. Some kept praying under their breath. Their silence felt like mockery. I snatched the Bible from the woman's hands. She let out a heartbroken sound. Not pain, but deep grief. That sound made me angrier. I threw the Bible on the floor and stepped on it hard. I expected them to fall apart in fear. But the woman only bowed her head and whispered something calm. Her peace felt like a challenge to my authority. I ordered the guards to arrest every single person in that room immediately. They obeyed, though I saw discomfort on their faces. They tied the workers' hands and marched them out. As we walked through the palace, staff stopped and stared. Everyone knew Princess Laila never showed mercy when Islam was involved. I ignored every look and every whisper. I felt righteous, strong, chosen. When we reached the courtyard, the other 28 workers were already waiting, confused and afraid. I ordered all 40 to be brought together. Their faces showed shock and pain. I announced loudly that Christian gatherings and Bibles would never be tolerated in this palace or anywhere under my watch in Kabul. Again, no one spoke against me. I waited for someone to beg or explain, but the silence was total. The chief guard quietly suggested that maybe deportation would be enough. His words annoyed me deeply. I believe mercy would only make Christians bolder. I commanded the guards to take all 40 to the detention rooms outside the compound walls right then. They exchanged worried looks, but obeyed. The workers walked out with chains on their wrists, heads down, tears falling silently. I watched them disappear through the gates with a heart colder than the Kabul winter. I did not see human beings who were afraid. I saw people who had insulted Islam and deserved whatever came next. From the doorway, I saw them kneel together inside the detention room, holding hands, whispering prayers. That sight irritated me more than anything. One older Kenyan man looked straight at me, with eyes full of sadness, but no hate. That look felt like judgment, and I hated it. I threatened them again, telling them their actions would bring the worst punishment. Some cried harder, some wiped their faces, but not one person begged or cursed me. Their quiet strength confused and angered me at the same time. That evening I met with an imam who often came to the palace for advice. I told him everything, making the story sound even worse than it was. I said the workers had been secretly trying to convert palace staff. The imam's face became hard. He told me that allowing Christian practices inside a royal Afghan home was shameful and dangerous for the whole ummah. He reminded me that Afghanistan must stay pure for Islam. When I mentioned the punishment I had in mind, he did not stop me. He only said, "Allah knows your intention. Do whatever protects the faith." Those words felt like permission from heaven itself. Any small doubt I had carried vanished. I felt strong, certain, ready. Later that night, I called the chief guard again and gave him every detail of how the execution must happen. It would be in the desert outside Pagman, just before dawn, quiet and quick. He stood stiff, face white, hand shaking, but he said yes. When he asked the method, I told him without blinking. He swallowed hard and nodded. I told myself his fear was normal. He simply felt the weight of serving Islam. After he left, I walked to the detention block, one final time. The workers sat in a circle holding hands, praying softly in their languages. When they saw me, the room became still. I told them clearly that their execution would happen before sunrise, that this was the price for bringing Christianity into Muslim land. Some gasped, some cried out. One woman fell to the floor. A young man tried to stand but dropped to his knees shaking. Yet none of them begged for their lives. Their calm acceptance shook me more than screaming would have. I left the detention block, with my heart harder than ever. I returned to my room believing I was doing the right thing. I lay down, but sleep would not come. The palace was silent, the night was cold, and I kept seeing their faces. I told myself again that Christians had no place in Afghanistan. Within hours, 40 lives would end because of my command. I felt proud. I had no idea that heaven itself was already moving, that a power greater than mine was coming toward that detention block, and that before the sun rose over Kabul, everything I believed about strength, about Islam, about Allah, and about myself would be turned upside down forever. That night, after leaving the detention block, I tried to sleep with every bit of strength I had left, but rest felt far away after giving such a heavy order. My mind kept racing with images of the workers and thoughts of the execution. I forced myself to lie down, telling myself that sleep would make me stronger for what was coming. I turned off the lamps and closed my eyes, trying to slow my breath. But the quiet of the palace made every small sound feel bigger, and my thoughts would not stop. I kept seeing the workers' faces, some crying, some praying softly, some just looking at the ground like they knew what was next. For a short moment, a weird heavy feeling pressed on my chest. I pushed it away fast, reminding myself why I had done it. I believed Christianity inside the palace was wrong, and I had acted to protect Islam. Yet the heaviness stayed, making it hard to breathe easy. I finally fell into a light sleep, but it did not last. A loud knock on my door woke me suddenly. It was close to midnight. My heart jumped as I sat up quickly, wondering who would wake a princess so late. When I opened the door a little, a guard stood there, his face white and his eyes big with worry. He said sorry for bothering me, but said something strange was happening at the detention rooms. I frowned, feeling annoyed but also curious. He told me that guards on watch saw flashes of light inside the building. It sounded silly at first. I asked if someone had broken in or if there was a problem with the lights, but he shook his head and said the lights looked different, not like normal electricity. That word made something uneasy stir inside me. I told him to stay calm and keep watching, then closed the door. But his scared voice stayed in my head long after. Sleep would not come back after that. I lay there for minutes, looking at the dark ceiling, hearing the soft sounds of the palace fans. Something fell off, but I did not want to say it. Finally, I got up and walked to my window that looked out over the dark hills around Kabul. The night sky was clear, stars shining bright. Everything outside looked peaceful, but my heart kept beating fast with a worry I could not name. I picked up my phone and called the chief guard. When he answered, his voice sounded out of breath, and I knew right away something bad had happened. He said the cameras in the detention rooms stopped working all at once. The screens went fuzzy, then black, then full of static. The lights inside flickered too. The guards heard the 40 workers praying loud together, even singing songs in their own words. He said the air felt different, like it was moving on its own. His voice shook as he spoke, and for the first time, a small wave of fear hit me that I could not push away. I asked him hard questions, trying to take control. I said he was probably making it up or getting scared over nothing, but he swore it was real. He said 2 guards saw a soft glow near the roof inside the rooms. It was bright but not too much, warm but not from any lamp. It only lasted seconds before it went away. I felt angry rising inside. I wanted to call their stories foolish, but the fear in his voice was too strong. My pride fought with my wonder, and I ended the call fast. I told myself Christians use tricks with feelings and pretend spirits to fool people. I said to myself the workers were singing loud to make trouble or get pity. But even as I thought about these things, the worry inside me grew bigger. Hours went by slowly. I tried hard to sleep again, but every noise felt too loud. The steps of guards far away, the soft ring of a bell in another part of the palace, even the sound of wind outside my window. Around 3 in the morning, tiredness finally pulled me into sleep. But this time, I went into a dream that was nothing like before. I saw myself standing alone in a wide empty land near the Salong Pass, with mountains all around but no people or cars. The ground was dry and rocky, going on forever, no wind or marks on it. The sky was bright in a strange way, but no sun showed. As I turned around slow, trying to know where I was, I saw a man far away walking to me. He had on a white robe, brighter than the snow on the peaks, and as he got closer, my breath got harder. I tried to move, but my feet stuck to the ground like roots. The air near him seemed to shine, like light walked with him. The man held something in his hands, like a book that gave off a soft glow. Not fire, but something alive. My heart beat so hard it hurt my chest. As he came nearer, I felt a strong feeling all around me, warm but scary, too much to handle. His face looked calm and kind, not like any person I knew. When he stood close, he lifted the glowing book a little, like giving it to me. My breath stopped. I tried to speak, to ask who he was or what he wanted, but no words came out. The land around us got so quiet, I heard my own heart like drums. Then he spoke. His voice was gentle but strong, soft but full of power, but I could not make out the words. I only felt how his voice shook me deep inside. It felt like he knew all about me, my anger, my pride, my choices, my fears. Before I could do anything, I woke up fast, breathing hard like I had been underwater. My whole body shook. The room felt cold even with the warm air. Sweat was on my face. I put my hands on my chest to calm down. I did not want to think the dream meant something. I told myself dreams are just from tired days. But no matter how I tried, the dream stayed clear in my mind, scary and real. I sat on my bed edge, breathing deep, seeing again the man lifting the glowing book. That picture scared me more than anything ever. Nothing in my life made me ready for a dream like that, and the fear stayed strong. For minutes I sat still, looking at the floor, not able to move. The dream was too strong, too clear, too heavy to forget. I got up slowly and went to my mirror. My face looked white, like a stranger. I put water on my face and tried to stop shaking. I said to myself many times that the execution would end this, that things would go back to normal after. But my hands kept trembling. I heard myself say softly, "Allah, keep me safe." But even that prayer felt weak. I went back to the window and looked toward the detention rooms. The sky was turning from black to dark blue, As morning came near, a strange weight sat in my stomach. Something inside said the hours ahead would not go like I planned, but my pride made me ignore it. Just before the sun started to rise, I left my room and walked the quiet palace halls. The lights were soft and yellow, flickering a little, making everything feel tense. Every guard I passed bowed, but I saw worry on their faces. Some did not look at me. I kept walking, my heart beating faster with each step. I wanted to look sure and strong, but the dream kept coming back. When I got outside, the cool morning air touched my face, and for a second I felt better. But as I looked at the road to the detention rooms, the heavy feeling came back. I told myself I was a royal princess in Afghanistan, and fear had no room in me. But even as I stood tall, my hands shook a little. The chief guard waited at the gate. His face showed he had been through something hard overnight. He waited before he spoke, like he did not know how much to say. He told me quietly that the strange lights came back 2 more times in the night. He said the workers prayed loud for hours, not stopping, singing songs together with strong voices that filled the rooms. He said the air felt thick, like it was shaking. One guard fell down for no reason and stayed out for 20 minutes. Another heard whispers in a tongue he did not know, but the workers were not talking. The chief guard ended by saying, "Your Highness, something is there. Something we do not know." His voice shook, and though I wanted to yell at him, the fear already in me got stronger. I would not let fear win in front of them. So I lifted my head and told the chief guard to get the cars ready. I said I would go to the execution myself to make sure it was done right. But inside, my heart felt like it was breaking. I knew something was coming, something I could not stop. As the car door shut and we drove toward the detention rooms, the dream played in my head again. The man in white, the glowing book, the feeling too strong to ignore. I tried to forget it, but it stayed like a shadow. As we got closer to the gates, the sky turned light orange, showing the sun was coming. I breathed deep, trying to stay calm, not knowing that this morning would change my whole life forever. We reached the detention block just outside the compound walls as the first pale light of dawn touched the hills around Kabul. The morning air was cold and still, quieter than I had ever known it. No birds, no wind, no distant call to prayer yet, only silence. I stepped out of the car and felt my chest tighten. The guards were already lined up, but they looked different. Their faces were gray, their hands unsteady. Some could not even look at me. I forced myself to walk straight, to show no weakness. The chief guard led me toward the open courtyard where the 40 workers had been brought. As we got closer, I heard soft singing, low and united, rising from inside. My skin went cold. They were singing hymns even now, minutes from death. When the gate opened and I stepped inside, what I saw stopped my breath. All 40 workers were on their knees in perfect rows, heads bowed, hands raised to the sky. Some whispered prayers, some sang quietly, their voices gentle but strong. I had expected screaming, begging, panic. Instead, I saw peace, real peace, shining on their faces. It made me feel small and angry at the same time. The guards moved to start the preparations, but their steps were slow, their eyes jumping between me and the prisoners. I could feel their fear. I lifted my hand to make them hurry, but before anyone could move, a sudden wind hit us like a wall. It was not a normal wind. It came out of nowhere, fierce and violent, throwing dust and small stones into the air. Within seconds it became a full sandstorm, roaring so loud my ears hurt. I stumbled back, covering my face as sand stung my skin like needles. The guards shouted and fell to their knees, trying to protect their eyes. Rifles dropped and clattered on the ground. One guard screamed as the wind tore his turban away. Another crawled on the ground, calling for help. I tried to shout orders, but the storm swallowed my voice. The air was thick with sand. Every breath burned. My abaya whipped around me like it wanted to fly off. I had never felt so powerless in my life. Then I saw the impossible. While the storm attacked us with terrible force, The 40 workers stayed perfectly still. Not one grain of sand touched them. Their clothes did not move. Their hair stayed in place. They kept kneeling, eyes closed, hands lifted, singing the same soft song. The storm moved around them like an invisible wall protected them. Sand that blinded me never reached them. Wind that knocked grown men down never touched them. I stared, unable to understand. If this was a natural storm, it should hit everyone. But it only hit us, the guards and me. Fear rushed through my whole body. My knees went weak. Something beyond nature was happening right in front of me. I tried to step back, but the wind pushed me harder, almost throwing me to the ground. I covered my face, coughing, tears mixing with the sand on my cheeks. Then suddenly I felt it, a presence behind me. Not a person, not a guard, but something huge and alive, standing only inches away. Heat poured from it, warm like sunlight, cutting straight through the freezing storm. Every hair on my body stood up. My heart almost stopped. I could not turn around at first. I was too afraid. The roaring wind filled my ears, but through it came a voice, calm, clear, stronger than the storm itself. "Why do you fight me?" The words were not loud, yet they went straight into my soul. Time seemed to freeze. The storm kept raging, but the voice rang inside my head and my heart at the same time. It was not angry. It was not threatening. It was full of power and sadness together. My whole body shook. I wanted to run, to scream, to hide, but I could not move. The presence behind me grew stronger, the warmth wrapping around me like arms I could not see. Tears poured from my eyes. Then the voice came again, softer but deeper. "Why do you fight me?" The question broke something inside me. It reached every proud place in my heart and crushed it. With all the strength I had left, I turned around slowly. There was no one, only swirling sand, but the presence was real, more real than the ground under my feet. My legs gave way. I fell hard onto the dirt, coughing and crying. I looked again at the workers. They were still untouched, glowing faintly in the middle of the storm, peaceful and protected. At that moment, every belief I had about being right, about being strong, about protecting Islam, everything crashed into pieces. I knew. Something far greater than me had stepped in. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the storm stopped. Completely. 1 second the wind screamed and sand blinded us. The next second, total silence. The air became still. Sand dropped straight to the ground like rain stopping. The sky cleared, and the first rays of sunrise broke over the mountains. The guards lay scattered, coughing, shaking, too terrified to stand. Weapons lay everywhere. The courtyard looked like a battlefield, but the 40 workers were still kneeling, calm and unharmed, not one hair out of place. I stared at them, my heart beating so loud I heard it in my ears. My whole body shook. Tears ran down my face, and I could not stop them. The silence was heavier than the storm had been. I forced myself to stand, legs trembling. The guards looked at me with wide, terrified eyes, waiting for orders. But I had no words. My voice came out small and broken. "Release them." They did not move, thinking they heard wrong. I swallowed the stone in my throat and said louder, "Release all of them." Now my voice cracked like a child's. The guards jumped to obey, some almost running to unlock the chains. The workers stood slowly, looking at me with gentle eyes that held no hate, only pity and wonder. I could not stay another second. My heart felt like it would burst. I turned and walked away on shaking legs. Each step felt heavy, like I carried the whole world. When I reached the car, I paused at the door. For the first time in my life, I felt completely lost. Not lost on a road, but lost in everything I thought I knew. I got inside quietly. The door closed and shut out the morning light. My hand shook in my lap. Tears kept falling. I leaned back and closed my eyes. I did not know whose voice had spoken. I did not know why the storm spared them and attacked only us. But one thing I knew with all my heart. I had just seen the power of the living God. And whatever happened next, I could never again raise my hand against his people. The drive back to the palace felt endless. The streets of Kabul were still asleep, only a few early bread sellers lighting their ovens, but inside the car everything was loud. My heart, my breathing, my thoughts crashing against each other. The guard sat silent in front, not daring to speak. When we passed through the gates of Dar el-Aman, the compound looked exactly the same as yesterday, yet nothing felt the same. The marble, the fountains, the roses, everything looked distant, like I was seeing them through water. I walked straight to my private quarters, closed the heavy door, and leaned against it with my eyes shut. The storm, the voice, the workers untouched. The question, "Why do you fight me?" kept repeating over and over until I thought I would lose my mind. I tried to pray like I always had. I took my prayer mat, faced the Qibla, and began the usual movements. But the words stuck in my throat. Allahu Akbar felt empty. The Quran verses I knew by heart sounded far away, like someone else's voice. For the first time in my life, I could not finish a single rak'at. I sat on the carpet with my face in my hands and started shaking. Tears came without permission. I whispered, "Allah, show me what is happening," but even that prayer felt weak, like I was speaking to a wall. The warmth from the storm still clung to my skin, and the voice still echoed in my bones. I felt torn in half, one part clinging to everything I'd been taught, the other part pulled towards something I cannot name. I do not know how long I sat there. Minutes, maybe hours. Then a strong feeling came over me, gentle but impossible to ignore, telling me to go to the small prayer room at the end of the women's wing. I had not entered that room for ordinary prayers in years. It was mostly for guests, but my feet moved on their own. I walked through the quiet corridors, past sleeping servants, until I reached the carved wooden door. When I pushed it open, the air inside felt different, warmer, alive. The morning light came softly through the lattice windows, painting patterns on the carpet. I stepped inside, closed the door, and knelt in the middle of the room. I had no idea what to say or to whom I should speak. I bowed my head and tried again. "Allah, guide me," I whispered, but the name felt strange on my tongue now. Tears fell faster. I felt lost, ashamed, terrified. I had almost killed 40 innocent people. I had hated the God they served. I had stepped on his word. My pride, my certainty, everything lay broken at my feet. I pressed my hands to my face and sobbed like a small child. Then, slowly, a warmth began to fill the room. It started small, like sunlight moving across the floor, but it grew until the whole space felt wrapped in it. The air shimmered. My breath stopped. I lifted my head and saw light gathering in front of me, soft, golden, alive. Not from the windows, not from any lamp. The light grew brighter until it shaped itself into the form of a man. He wore a simple white robe that seemed to shine from inside. His face was kind, strong, full of peace and sorrow at the same time. I knew instantly who he was. My whole body started trembling, so hard I could not stay upright. I fell forward on my hands, tears dripping onto the carpet. He stepped closer, and the warmth became almost too much to bear, yet it did not burn, it healed. Then he spoke, and his voice was the same one from the storm, gentle, deep, impossible to describe. "Laila," he said, saying my name like he had known me before I was born. "I am Jesus, the one they worship, the one who came for you." The moment I heard his name, every wall inside me collapsed. I cried out loud, a sound I did not know I could make. All the hatred I carried, all the pride, all the cruelty poured out with my tears. I managed to lift my face, wet and shaking. "Why me?" I whispered, voice breaking. "I hated you. I almost killed your people. I stepped on your book." He knelt, so his eyes were level with mine. The love in them was too strong to look at for long, yet I could not look away. "Because I love you," he said softly, "and because you are mine." Those words broke me completely. I fell forward again, sobbing into the carpet. I hated them. I hated you. I nearly murdered 40 innocent lives. Forgive me, forgive me. I expected fire, judgment, punishment. Instead, he reached out, not touching my body, but touching something deeper inside me, and said the words that changed everything forever. I have already forgiven you. Peace poured into me, like water into a cracked cup. Every dark place inside my heart filled with light. The chains I never knew I wore snapped and fell away. I felt clean for the first time in my life. I lifted my head again, tears still falling, and looked at him through blurred eyes. Something rose from the deepest part of me, simple, true, unstoppable. Jesus, I whispered, I believe. I am yours. The moment those words left my lips, the warmth wrapped around me like arms. Light filled the entire room until I could see nothing but gold. I felt his smile more than I saw it. Then slowly the light began to fade, but the peace stayed. When my eyes cleared, he was gone, yet his presence remained, warm and near, like a heartbeat inside my own. I stayed kneeling on the carpet for a long time, whispering his name over and over, afraid to move in case the feeling left. But it did not leave. It grew roots inside me. When I finally stood, my legs were weak, but my spirit felt taller than the mountains around Kabul. I walked back to my room holding this new life against my chest like a secret treasure. I knew the danger. If anyone ever discovered what had happened, my life would be over. But none of that mattered anymore. Jesus had come to me himself. He had forgiven the unforgivable. He had called me his own. From that moment, I belonged to him completely. I felt a new purpose forming inside me, one I had never imagined. I could no longer harm Christians. I could no longer allow their suffering. I would protect them quietly, secretly, courageously. For the first time in my life, I whispered a prayer to Jesus. Led me, and in the silence that followed, I felt him answer. In the days that followed my encounter with Jesus, everything around me looked the same, yet nothing inside me felt familiar anymore. I walked through the palace halls carrying a secret that changed the entire direction of my life. When I greeted family members, attended meetings, or listened to advisors, I did so with a calm expression, but my heart beat differently now. I found myself whispering his name when I was alone, feeling that same warmth each time his memory entered my thoughts. I still followed royal protocol outwardly, still observed the expectations placed on a Muslim princess, because revealing my transformation openly could cost my life. Yet deep inside, I felt freer than I had ever been. My faith became something alive, something that pulsed with love and conviction, something that guided my decisions with a clarity I had never known before. The first test of my new faith came sooner than expected. The guard sent me reports recommending new inspections among the Filipino workers and other foreign staff, claiming they suspected additional Christian gatherings. Before, I would have approved such raids without hesitation, but now the idea of sending guards to intimidate people who simply wanted to worship Jesus felt unbearable. I couldn't let that happen. I told the supervisors that resources were needed elsewhere, claiming that the workers posed no threat and that constant monitoring wasted manpower. Some guards were surprised by my sudden shift in approach, but none dared question me openly. Just like that, a cycle of fear began to weaken. The workers did not know what stopped the raids, but I did. It was Jesus, the same Jesus I had nearly fought against, who now guided my decisions quietly, shaping my heart with compassion I never believed I was capable of showing. But stopping new raids was only the beginning. My heart felt heavy knowing that countless Christian workers across Rid and Mata were still in prison for their faith. Some endured harsh treatment simply because they carried a Bible or whispered a prayer. One afternoon, I visited the detention block under the guise of routine inspection. The guards stood nervously as I walked past the cells. When I reached the room where the 40 workers had once been held, I felt a rush of emotion. Their absence reminded me of Jesus' intervention. The moment he broke through the walls of my pride, I quietly requested files on detainees held for Christian activities. Some officers hesitated, unsure why I cared about such cases, but my rank left them no choice. I read through each file slowly, my heart tightening as I saw the cruelty behind their charges. Those imprisoned for singing hymns, those punished for owning scripture, those detained simply because they prayed. I began releasing them one by one, silently and strategically. I wrote administrative exemptions, modified charges, or ordered deportation instead of imprisonment. Some officers questioned the sudden compassion in my decisions, fearing that leniency might weaken control. But I assured them that the kingdom needed stability, not aggression. They obeyed, though confusion reflected in their eyes each time I dismissed a Christian case. The first worker I freed was a Filipina cleaner named Taya, who stared at me through the bars with disbelief when she heard the news. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Thank you, Jesus," over and over. At first, her gratitude felt like a knife of guilt, reminding me of the harm I had once planned. But then, warmth filled my chest, the same warmth I felt in the prayer room. Jesus was transforming me, shaping me, healing the darkness inside me, one decision at a time. Soon, word spread quietly among the migrant communities. They didn't know my name, and they didn't know I was a royal princess. But rumors began circulating that someone in high authority was protecting Christians. I heard whispers through palace staff, drivers, cleaners, stories of hope traveling from camp to camp. Some Filipino workers began meeting again cautiously, praying with gratitude for someone they believed God had raised up for them. Their faith humbled me. I realized that Jesus wasn't only saving me from my pride, he was using me to save others from fear. I made it my mission to ensure no Christian worker under my influence would suffer again. I studied guard schedules, reviewed surveillance routes, and quietly sent warnings through trusted intermediaries when certain locations became risky. Underground pastors never knew who protected them. They only knew someone cared. Over time, the testimonies multiplied. Dozens of workers rededicated their lives to Jesus after hearing about the miracle at the detention block. Some who were once hesitant to worship openly found courage again, believing God had shown them mercy through the storm. A Kenyan cleaner told an Afghan colleague that God had stopped the wind to free his people. A Filipino driver shared with another that a princess saw the hand of Jesus. Though exaggerated in some retellings, the heart of their message remained the same. God had intervened. I listened secretly. Whenever these stories reached my ears, my heart swelling with emotions I could hardly describe. I found comfort knowing that Jesus was moving throughout the kingdom in ways people did not understand, drawing hearts closer to him, lifting the fears of believers who once worshipped quietly in shadows. Late at night, when the palace halls grew silent and the world outside my windows rested, I often went to my prayer room, the same place where Jesus had appeared to me. I would kneel on the carpet, close my eyes, and breathe slowly, letting the memory of his presence wash over me. I whispered prayers, not in the structured words I learned growing up, but in simple language that came from my heart. Jesus, guide me. Jesus, protect them. Jesus, help me walk in your truth. Each time I felt the peace he had given me, I read portions of the New Testament secretly on my phone, careful to disguise the app behind folders and security locks. Every verse felt like water in a desert, especially the words about forgiveness, mercy, and loving one's enemies. I often cried quietly, overwhelmed by how Jesus had turned my hatred into compassion and my pride into humility. There were nights when guilt resurfaced, the thought that I had once ordered 50 innocent people to die. The shame weighed heavily on me, even though Jesus had forgiven me. During those moments, I remembered the storm, the voice, and his appearance in the prayer room. I remembered his compassion, his gentleness, his love. His forgiveness wasn't distant. It felt alive, active, and continuous. Sometimes I replayed the scene of the workers kneeling in prayer, untouched by the storm, and I realized Jesus had not only saved them, he had also saved me. The man who once despised Christians was now kneeling before their Savior, learning his heart, feeling his presence, embracing his love. I often whispered, "I don't deserve you," and felt his peace quieting the storm inside me, reminding me that grace was not about worthiness, but about love. As months passed, more Christian workers began speaking openly in private about miracles happening among them. Some said they dreamt of Jesus visiting their rooms at night. Others claimed they sensed protection when walking near areas known for arrests. A few said they felt the atmosphere shift in their gatherings as if angels surrounded them. Whether exaggerated or not, their hope grew stronger, and deep inside, I felt honored to be a small part of their survival. Even though they had no idea who I was, I knew Jesus was weaving their stories and mine together. I believed that was why he had chosen me, not only to save me from pride, but to protect his people in a place where their worship was forbidden. My life became a quiet mission, a secret ministry hidden behind palace curtains, fueled not by fear, but by love. One evening while watching the sunset, I opened an app on my phone and reread Genesis 50 verse 20, the verse that once appeared during the workers' suffering and that had now become a mirror for my own life. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. The words pierced me with deep emotion. I had planned evil. I had acted from hatred, pride, and ignorance. Yet Jesus had turned my cruelty into a pathway for his grace. He had taken my intent to harm and transformed it into a journey of protection for hundreds of believers. I looked out at the city lights with tears in my eyes, whispering, "Jesus, what you have done with my life. Only you could do this." The verse no longer felt like scripture on a page. It felt like a prophecy fulfilled in my own heart. Now every day I live with a quiet but powerful conviction that my life belongs to Jesus. I cannot declare it openly, not in this kingdom, not in this palace, but he knows my heart and he guides my steps. Each decision I make, each person I protect, each prayer I whisper in the silence becomes part of the faith I carry. I know I may never worship freely in public, but I worship him deeply in secret. I know I may never stand in a church, but I stand in his presence every time I kneel in my prayer room. I know I may never speak his name aloud to those around me, but my life speaks for him every time I choose compassion over judgment. As I write the final part of this chapter of my story, I understand clearly what Jesus meant when he confronted me in the storm. I was fighting him without knowing him. I was fighting love, truth, and mercy. But he did not destroy me. He rescued me. And now, with a heart transformed and a purpose renewed, I whisper the words that define my life forever. Lord Jesus, use me in this land even if no one ever knows my name and nothing in this world or the next could ever change it.